All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's 3 o'clock in Houston. It's a beautiful day. And those of you that might be in Colorado, you might be getting some snow. We actually got a little bit of that side effect in Houston, Texas, with a cold front of about 90 degrees this morning, but no humidity. So, welcome to our panel for today. My name is Patty Dominguez, and I am Vice President of Architecture and Design for Cosentino, North America. And I have the pleasure of being with all of you here today to talk about friends and designer friends and partners of Cosentino. I'd like to introduce Nar Bustamante. Nar, will you wave and say hello? This is Nar Bustamante, who is a dear friend of the brand, a dear friend of Cosentino. Some of you have already seen him in some of our panels. And one thing about Nar that I always like to say when I introduce him is he was the pioneer of a designer when it comes to Dect. When we launched Dect for the very first time, he was one of the first ones, actually the first designer to work with it, to embrace it, and to have some of his work published in magazines showcasing how to work with Dect in a beautiful fireplace that I remember was his first application with it. Nar has been a designer for the last 10 years, owns a beautiful design firm called Nar Design in Sacramento, California. And you will hear a little bit more about him. But thank you, Nar, for being such a great friend of the brand, of the family, and welcome to the panel. Next, I would like to introduce to you my dear friend, Carrie Kelly. Carrie Kelly, thank you. Carrie has been a friend of the brand also for many years. I still remember the very first time that I picked up the phone and called Carrie after she did an amazing blog and wrote a story about some of her trips. And I fell in love with the way she wrote and the love she had for the brands that she associated herself with. And we asked her to join us on a trip to Spain, and the rest is history. She's been a part of the brand from the beginning. She was a Silestone trend spotter, the original group, and created a beautiful color of Silestone. Although with her, I remember back in the day when she started with that color and she said, blue is in, you need to have blue. And sure enough, she was right. I'm wearing blue in your honor. Carrie is an amazing designer who's been in the business for 25 years. If you don't follow her, you should. She is amazing. She and I also have the great privilege of being on the board of directors of the American Society of Interior Design, where Carrie is the president-elect and chair-elect of the board. And so with that, it's been, our paths continue to cross, and I'm sure we'll be on a personal and a professional level. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you for having me.
And last, but certainly not least, is our dear friend, Marc Williams. And Marc is a designer who has been in the business for, I'm going to say 30 years, because I like to make sure that everyone knows how old he is, even though he's so young and beautiful. Marc Williams also comes from the original Silestone Trend Spotter group. He has been a dear friend of the Silestone, Dect, and the Cosentino brand. He has evolved in his business in Atlanta, Georgia for all these years. For me, it's been a real pleasure to see how much you've grown your business, what you have done with your business, how it started with a small residential business, and now everything that you've grown into on the commercial level. And I'm just so proud of you and Nikki, your partner, and then, just on a personal side, we two have traveled together. We've gone to Spain several times. There's so much history and so much background with our dear friend Marc, and it is really a pleasure also to introduce you. And if you don't follow Marc, please make sure that you do so. And before we get started with the rest of the panel, I'd like to say happy birthday to Marc. And we are all wishing you a very, very happy birthday. And you've given us the great excuse for Nar and Carrie and I to have a drink. And I asked Steve to have a drink ready for you. So cheers to you and happy birthday.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Cheers.
Cheers.
And you know what's great about this is that, so it's 3:00 in Houston. That means it's 4:00 in Atlanta. And that means it is 1:00 in California where Nar and Carrie are. And so those of you that are watching on YouTube, all I can say is go get a glass of wine and relax, because the purpose for today is I hope you will be as inspired as I am to see some of the great things that these wonderful designers do, but at the same time, to have fun, to enjoy, and to learn about our new Dect collection. So, and then for those of you that might be in Spain, it's 10 p.m. over there. So maybe it's not your first drink.
It's time in Spain for sure. Absolutely.
It's always time in Spain.
Yes.
You're right. It's always time in Spain. I think we all learned that when the four of us have traveled there together.
Absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. So thank you all, and thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
I'd like to start our conversation, and like I said, I'd like to make sure that we get around to everything. For those of you that are just joining, I just wanted to say we will be answering your questions at the end of the call of this show call panel. So 15 minutes before we wrap up, we will be opening it for questions. So if you want to type in questions now or later, we will have time. I will call those out. And if you want to leave your name and tell us who you are, we'll answer them. And then we will do that at 3:45 Central Time. So make sure that you feel free to ask anything that you'd like. And other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to ask the first question, and it has a little bit to do with Dect in general, not necessarily about the collection. Noise. It might be, if anyone's wearing a microphone, that might be it. If not, okay, that's good. So I want to talk a little bit about Dect, and if you don't mind, Nar, I'd like to start with you, and basically just ask you a little bit about Dect and the versatility of it, and how you integrate it in different spaces, and anything that you can share with us in regards to Dect.
Well, absolutely. When I first learned about Dect, I felt pretty hungry to find a product that was something that didn't scratch, something that didn't, that was very resistant. Everyone's question is always, does it burn? Does it scratch? How well does it clean up? And now that's a very important question. So I went on a kind of a stampede of trying Dect in every possible scenario that I could find, from fireplaces, indoors, outdoors, kitchens, bathrooms. And I just looked for every angle. I tried every miter, every possibility, hanging it on the wall. And what I really discovered is that it's an incredible product that can be treated like, many other stones that we have. It's a little bit more interesting to work with, in that that once it's set, once it's in place, it's going to be there for a very long time. People are going to enjoy working with it. People are going to enjoy cleaning it. Not that they enjoy cleaning things, but I actually really love how mine just wipes up. But the colors are fascinating. I think that Decton's done an incredible job creating these fabulous colors. The new series that I saw in Mexico at the C100 was just amazing. I'm really looking forward to working with the whole new set of colors that we have.
Thank you, Nar. So Carrie, going back now a little bit to you, how do you see Decton, and what kind of applications or projects have you used it with that you could maybe share with us?
Well, while the kitchen's a given, and we've recently, you and I have talked about with this current situation that we're dealing with, as far as everything, we're wanting that wellness and healthy kind of feeling and vibe, and products in our home to reflect that. We've done that, used it a lot in the kitchen. But even better, I was having a challenge with finding products that were UV resistant and taking it outside. And what I was using previously was not working. And when Decton came on and product developer Valentine took a blowtorch to our Decton, I knew that it would be able to withstand anything that could happen outdoors. So we're outdoors here today. I have Decton behind me, and I know it's indestructible, not only easy to clean, but you can have a party and you can open up your home and not worry about being that host that's following people around, that you're worried that they're cutting on something, or a lemon has etched something, or wine has spilled, or even a small fire. It's indestructible, and it comes in such a beautiful variety of colors that we're really able to introduce it into any one of our designs.
That's fantastic. That's great that you're outside. I love it. I wish I was outside, but I would be sweating like crazy at 95 degrees.
I'm not saying I'm not sweating.
We'll have a glass of champagne and you'll get
Good cure.
So you use, when you talk to your clients and you're talking to them about Decton for outdoors, are you talking to them about outdoors for their countertops? And have you seen it used anywhere else besides a countertop outside? I know that you work closely with a lot of other companies that do outdoor spaces also, and we did have a panel on this last week with outdoors, but is that usually what you focus on for the countertops, or is there anything else that you have seen it and use it in?
As a designer in Northern California, I'm typically specifying it for countertops. However, of course, Daniel Giramani has turned this product on its head in working with Brown Jordan Outdoor Kitchens. And then you and I have had some work with Brown Jordan and their furniture collections. So the beauty of it in that it comes in a variety of thicknesses. And as we've seen at KBIS, whether you're cladding a bathroom or cladding an outdoor area, it works in multiple applications, whether we're horizontal on floors and countertops, or we're vertical on walls and cabinetry. There's such innovation and such opportunity. Really, your creativity is the only limit. There is something in line that can be applied to your project and work beautifully for your client.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning Brown Jordan and our dear friend Daniel. We actually have a panel with him and the Brown Jordan next week. And so for those of you that are watching and are interested in outdoors, definitely tune into that one next week. I think that it's such a hot topic right now, especially as we're, all living through this moment of wanting to spend time outside, but also in the different places we can use for our spaces at home. So thank you.
You bet.
All right, birthday boy. So what do you have to share with us in regards to using Decton in other applications, Marc? As I said at the beginning, I've watched you start on residential, and you still continue to do amazing residential projects, but I've also seen you take it in a different level in some construction and different buildings and more of the commercial arena as well. Is there anything that you can share with us in regards to how you use Decton and its versatility?
Sure. Yeah, I remember our first trip to the Decton factory before it was even a factory. It was just kind of a shell of a building with no equipment in it. As Decton was coming on board to the Cosentino product lineup, more as a concept at the time. As Carrie mentioned, Valentine was working diligently to try and figure out this new product, this new pile of component parts in terms of the ingredients that they use and how to make it beautiful. And he has really not only hit a home run with the initial product, but how it's developed over the years into something beautiful. So we started with outdoor kitchens because Decton is a very, very stable material in terms of expansion and contraction, as well as any kind of chemical interactions that might happen with oils or acids that are part of the cooking process. So we started there when the product was very, very new, but as our practice has grown, our use of the product has grown into some significant facade work. There's a wonderful project in Atlanta, just about 2 miles from my office, that I had the pleasure of watching come out of the ground that used Decton as its primary facade cladding material on the lower floors. So anything that you engage as a pedestrian, or even as high as 3 to 4 stories, Decton is cladding this beautiful new multifamily residential building that we have in the center of one of our primary residential and commercial districts. I have a house coming out of the ground right now in a neighborhood called Midtown in Atlanta. That's a very contemporary house, and we are cladding part of the front facade of the house in a smooth, shiny, high gloss, beautiful white Decton product. Anytime that we're doing a single family project or a commercial project, we're always looking at ways to use scale, texture, and contrast to build the primary components of the composition of that project. And Decton allows us to do that. We can use very, very dark materials against very light materials. There are kind of rough, matte finishes of Decton. There are very, very slick, shiny, glossy finishes of Decton. And it's the play of all of those things together that can create a compelling composition to create a balanced composition. Oh, there we are. That's the Charles, right up the street from my office. And that is immediately post-construction. It's a lot more lively now. That's probably 2 minutes or so after they took the construction fence down. But it's a really wonderful, versatile material for exterior cladding because it is so stable when it comes to expansion and contraction with heat. It also is very, very UV resistant in terms of the coloration, the inherent coloration that comes in the product. There are so many exterior products, as Carrie mentioned, that don't last long term in the exterior environment of strong sunshine, very, very wide variations in heat and cold. So the stability of Decton, not only from a dimensional characteristic in hot and cold, but the coloration that doesn't fade in heavy, heavy sunlight is important to us in the Atlanta market, where we do get blazing sunshine in the summer. So that it was a very, very helpful addition to our bag of tricks when it comes to exterior cladding.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you. I love that you have that, that you show it in so many different ways. I think you mentioned this, but with Decton being able to do in a home in a directed here application, like what you have in that contemporary house in Atlanta that you're doing, as well as like the one in the Charles in Atlanta that is mechanically engineered. And it's a range screen application, and the Decton can do both. And obviously, one of the benefits of it being the size, the different size panels, as well as the ability for you to create your own, sort of like what you did with Silestone, just like Carrie, when you created your own color. Having the ability to do that with projects both in Silestone and Decton. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So thank you all for showing us some of the work that you've done, and now what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of bring us into the actual Decton collection and introduce that to all of our friends that are watching us today. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this now, but the reality is that we are all living in a very difficult time, in a new normal that we don't know what that looks like. And one of the, one of the things that happens as we are dealing with this situation with COVID as a business is, how do we get close to you? How are we able to get close to our customer, to the end consumer? And how do you launch a product when we are used to launching it with events, with people, where we're used to having events, nationwide, where all of you have attended, and certainly the three of you have been so essential into coming to our events and to being part of it and to really embracing our new products. And today we don't have that opportunity. And so as we were trying to think of how do we launch a product, the reality is that we've done it in a couple of different ways. We are introducing the collection by Cosentino. And the collection by Cosentino is being introduced this month. And what we have done is we are sending samples to all of our customers. We have our account managers across the country at Cosentino calling, emailing you, and asking you for appointments if you are available. We have all of our centers open for meetings, for appointments. And we also have our virtual visits where you can go virtually and see our slabs. As we do this, we are also bringing different boxes and briefcases, marketing tools and materials that we have with our new collection to our elite and premier customers. And hopefully some of you are watching now. But the panel and our friends here today is another part of how we're going to do this, and some of the launches that we'll be doing nationwide. So with that, I'd like to first introduce to you the collection by Cosentino, the Dect collection, with this small video that we want to share with you. So there it is. It's the collection. It's several different colors and series. There's 4 different series that we are launching at this time, introducing Dect. One of them, as you saw, is the Dect Liquid collection. And we introduced it at Miami Design Week as a small view during that week for customers to come and see it during Miami Design Week. The Dect Liquid series is based from a London-based studio called Paternity, and that's where it began and the inspiration comes from. So we were very thrilled to have the Dect Liquid, the Dect Liquid with us as part of what we're showing. The second part of it is the Dect Chromica, and the Chromica collection is a collection that we have done with our dear friend Daniel Germani. The Dect Chromica collection, which some of you have already seen, and you've seen some of those inspirations, are absolutely beautiful. And I know of a few architect friends who have already talked to us about the opportunity to use some of these colors in an outdoor space for a facade of a building. And Carrie, I know you love that there's a blue in there. Daniel, you were fantastic. If you're watching, it was a pleasure to work with you and do the Chromica collection. And then we have our Avant-Garde collection, and that is Avant-Garde 20. And then we also have our portfolio collection, and the portfolio collection, it's the Portfolio 20, and that is also out. And so this is a big launch, as I explained a minute ago, a big launch for Cosentino. And so liquid, going back to those, I know the pictures were kind of going in. I'm sorry that I had a little bit of an issue with my connection, but the collection overview has the liquid, which was the shell, sky, and embers colors, the chromica, which is the Baltic and the Faro that I showed you a minute ago from Daniel, avant-garde, which is Helena and Kalo and Laurent, and then portfolio, which is Rem, Sasia, Kivik, Millar, and Bromo. So with that is the official introduction of our colors. Again, if you just joined us, if there's anything that we can do as a customer, please call us, do a virtual visit, come visit us into any of our centers, and definitely get a hold of your account managers in order for us to bring these colors to you, and for us to come and hopefully be in your showroom and have a face-to-face appointment if possible. So with that, after seeing all these great colors, we did have an opportunity to send them to Carrie and Marc and Nar. And so why don't you guys, let's talk about how you feel about the colors and what you think about the collection. So Nar, do you have any particular two colors that you prefer or that you like from the series? I know you got to see them at KBIS as well. So tell us what you think.
Absolutely. Well, it's so difficult to say this is my favorite color versus the other, because when you see them all standing side by side, I can imagine so many projects with one or the other material. And so oftentimes I don't let the material decide what the project's going to look like, but I design a project and the material just kind of comes to it. So most recently I've designed a couple of projects, and I always envisioned the Laurent here. I don't know if you can see it, but it was stunning in a full slab. So I've recently put together a project. You might have a picture of it that shows up here or not, but I sent it in, and it's just so dramatic in the background with the island, the backsplash, and I really look forward to this color. I think it's going to be very dynamic. It's very grounding. It has some very rich, mellow brown tones with kind of charcoaly tones that are really fabulous for kind of a subdued environment. The other color,
you know what, I'm going to interrupt you right there, but if I had to choose a color for you and would have said, which one is Nar going to pick? I would have picked Laurent by the avant-garde series. I just knew that was going to be one of your favorites.
We've hung out too much. You know how I roll. So, so that was definitely something I was very attracted to. The other one is the Rem. So the Rem. Oh, there's one of the designs that I just completed, and that has all the Laurent island and backsplash. That was a lot of fun to put together. So the other one is Rem, and what I loved about Rem is that in the veining, there's texture, so it feels very real. It reminded me of times where I'm in nature and I'm sitting, on a rock, and your fingers are kind of crawling the rock, but you could feel the texture of it. And so it's a sealed product. Dekton it's amazing how, like I said before, it cleans up and whatnot, but to be able to feel texture in the veining just put this on a whole different level. I love it.
Sorry about that. There was some background noise. I guess
that's
the beauty of working from home. Something happens every single time.
Well, were you able to hear all that, though? I hope that all came through.
I was. Thank you. I was able to hear it, and I know our friends out there were able to hear it. I apologize. I think that those projects you just showed are outstanding, and I am so honored that you're already working with them and that you've already used them the avant-garde series. So
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Nar.
I can't wait to see the finished product.
I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see more of your projects. So thanks.
Thank you.
Carrie, what about you?
Well, this will be no surprise. We have Baltic. I'm wearing Baltic. We have Baltic, but we've said that navy blue is the color of the decade, and we've been saying it since 2010, and it's seemed to stick somehow. It provides that perfect amount of contrast without going totally onyx or black, and also has a sophistication. I feel like similar to Abito when we created that together for Silestone, that you can dress it up or you can dress it down. It's like your favorite pair of jeans, but it also could be your navy blue blazer that dresses things up a bit. So it's just a classic. To me, it's a neutral. It's something very approachable, inviting, and just gives a little bit of edge. And I think right now, while we're so connected and there's a lot of technology going on, to bring in all of these more nature-inspired elements, whether it's water with Baltic, and the Baltic comes from the Chromica collection, or if it's shell, which is another one of my favorites from the liquid collection, it has that natural feel to it. It takes you anywhere from white to cream to beige to gray. So when you're investing in something like this for a backdrop or a larger piece of your home or your commercial project, to have something that has that variation that can take you through and create that timelessness, I think is something that's very important and very smart to do. And just to layer on the maintenance free and the easy installation of it all is just a total bonus and something that's easy to share with our clients.
Well, I can't agree with you more. I love that shell color. I think it's so cool and it's so fabulous. And I will say that during the kitchen and bath show at KBIS in Vegas, people went crazy over shell. So not that I'm surprised, but you have good taste.
I learned from the best.
And then, of course, you have that unbelievable blue, and I knew that you would pick Baltic. That was a no-brainer. And I know Daniel is hopefully watching us, I'm sure laughing, thinking, yes, that's it. You two nailed it. And that color is fantastic. And I would love to use that blue everywhere. I absolutely love that color. So thank you.
Wonderful. Great job.
Thank you. Marc, you're next. What about you? What are your picks?
So I am kind of a material, nerd, I guess, for lack of a better term. As we were saying before, sometimes you design a project and then you find the materials to live into that project. And sometimes I find a material that I find, so compelling or so exciting that inspires me into the rest of the project. So it can kind of go, either way in my office. So just to kind of piggyback on Nar, I think Rem is amazing because it's subtle, and it has a very quiet beauty, which I love. I think, sometimes in design we get so excited about what we're doing. The design can go beyond the actual application of what you're trying to do. You get too many things going on and it distracts you from other things that are going on. So, to keep a quiet base palette is very important in everything we do. So that, once you add the layers of life on top of your base palette, it doesn't become a visual circus. And that includes the people that occupy your spaces. We really want to focus the intention and the energy of the space on the people that are occupying your space. And Rem allows us to keep a very subtle, elegant backdrop for all of that activity and energy. Kind of going on to that very simple, quiet backdrop note would be Helena, which is also another one of those very soft whites, very quiet, like Shell, for example, which we love the nature of that. It's just so elegant and so simple and so soft that you can layer on top of it without worrying about it becoming just a cacophonous mess. So we love that. You can come on top of it with nickel. You can build on top of it with an antique brass like you see in the photo that's up. You can do so many things on top of it successfully that it allows us to continue to design even beyond the nature of that material, which we love. But when we were putting this segment together, I found it very difficult to say what my two favorites were, because there are so many pieces of this collection that are compelling in a way that make you want to design from that material. The material is the starting point. Calo, for example, is one of those that has so much personality and so much body to it that you want to find a way to then add quiet notes around it, because the material itself is so compelling. And then I can't talk about compelling materiality without going back to Laurent. We've already seen some beautiful pictures of that application. Being a materials nerd, I really internally have a hard time using materials that are designed to look like something else. All of these materials have an inspiration in natural stone. So my initial response would be, well, just use the natural stone. Don't use something that's trying to be that. But in some applications, that's not practical. Laurent is not inherently durable. The natural stone, Laurent, is not inherently durable. But I will say Decton, regardless of color application, is impervious to moisture, impervious to color penetration, impervious to cracking from expansion and contraction. It's just one of these materials that I don't have to worry about. And if I'm purchasing for myself, there we go. That is just so compelling to me. I want to use it today. And there are the three put next to one another. I would say my blood pressure goes down when I'm able to design with materials that I know are not going to fail for my clients in the future. We are designers and artists first, but all of us are also business people, and we have to worry about the performance of these materials for our clients, because ultimately we want our clients to be happy long term, but we also have to think about the financial ramifications if we have material failure. And with Decton, we don't worry about that.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's a wonderful explanation. Thank you. I do love those colors too. I think that you're absolutely right, and I love what you say about that starting point. I think that it's a key feature that you all have taught me as we've all worked and tried to work with developing color. And when you visited the factory and talked about product, is how important it is that a color speaks to you and that you're able to use it as a starting point in your designs. And so thank you for that. So speaking of that, Nar, how do you feel like these colors follow some type of the new trends and help you innovate, especially you with the way you innovate into some type of different applications? Like how do you see these colors inspiring you into some of the, I will say with respect, all the crazy fun things that you do with Decton?
Well, before I get going, I'd like to touch up on something that Marc said, which is really important. I have hundreds of slabs out there at this point from Decton on projects, and no callbacks as far as anything happening to them. Whereas in my previous life, granite cracked, or something discolored in the sun, or something got scratched and we had to, fix it. And I feel that since Decton came out, I've installed the product in such difficult applications and successfully, without ever feeling like I'm going to get a callback that something failed. So I just wanted to start there. With inspiration, I'm always looking for situations where I could either be subtle or dramatic, but always functional. It's all of my projects are for mostly kitchens and spaces where people are active, people are cooking, people are drinking wine, people are entertaining, and they're using these spaces. So first and foremost, that's the most important part to remember, is that this is active material. Following that, oftentimes I'm looking for subtle. And subtle, there's so many, kind of like Carrie's blue, that is just, it's a beautiful blue. It's a beautiful background on something that doesn't have a lot of action. So the action is something that Carrie would probably introduce with the design. And sometimes I'm looking for something like that as well, where I don't need competition with other textures I may be working with. Like Laurent, it creates this beautiful, natural, it's dramatic, but not stressing. It's a very organic drama that I'm going to say the stone creates. And so I'm always looking to play with neutrals and action, to say the least, on top of all the other layers I introduce into projects.
Thank you, Nar. And and then I also know that you work a lot with your designs, like I said earlier, with some furniture that you've done and different applications with Dect specifically. Do you see this collection inspiring you into doing something like that with furniture?
Oh, absolutely. Indoor furniture, outdoor furniture. So I'm going to tell a quick story about my first experience with really putting Dect outside at a patio table. I served a meal right onto the slab. It was hamburgers, fish, salad, dressings, and everything was with no plates. And so the same thing happens indoors, where we're used to having furniture that we have to be cautious with. And this becomes more of an architectural interest that we don't have to be cautious with, whether they are tables, side tables, flooring. It looks amazing on a floor. So that's another element of exploration that we haven't spoken about yet, that it adds architectural context to the entire home. So I consider the home in itself furniture in a minimalistic attitude.
Thank you, Nar. So Carrie, you have been involved in so many panels during this past 3 months. I've watched you with NKBA, with ASID, and obviously in your own, with your own practice. What would you tell us? What message would you have for us in regards to any inspiration on these colors, but not necessarily just these colors, but with Dect, maybe during the COVID situation? Do you think that this, anything that you could give tips on for using Dect, and do you think it's important, something to address during this time with the surfaces and with everyone's concern about cleanliness, I guess?
Yeah, we thought that topic was so important that we actually did a blog about it. And it's interesting that the brands that were featured in doing the best work were those that we've worked with for a long time. And it's because you guys are the innovators. You support us as designers. And so whether it's our partners at Cosentino or with Crossville Tile or Brizo, there's innovation that's occurring there that for you guys, it was already in place when it came to antimicrobial and those kinds of topics, and easy maintenance, easy to clean. But even further, the NKBA research that we've done over the past 6 to 8 months in interviewing manufacturers, designers, showrooms about what do we need to address as a design industry. The 4 areas that came up were livable design, healthy design, connected design, and simplified design. And in those 4 categories, there is nothing that can't be addressed with the Dect and Cosentino overall Silestone products. They feather into each of those segments, each of those, whether it's healthy, simplified, connected, or livable, meaning multi-generational, kids cooking in the kitchen, grandparents outside at the barbecue, all the areas where these products can go. There's a safety to it. There's a connectedness, a simplification, and a wellness element. And you guys, once again, have hit it on the head. So we as designers can be very confident, not only having it look good, but having it perform as well.
Thank you, Carrie. I think it's a very important subject, and I think I keep hearing, people talking more and more about this. And one of the things that we keep hearing a lot of is the people today at home renovating, remodeling, and thinking of different ways how to use their spaces and the functionality of it, as well as the ability to, now that they've lived in their home for a while, more than before, how to use it. So now we're going to go ahead, and because of time, we're going to go ahead and hear from our audience instead of just me asking questions. So if you guys don't mind, so if you're in the audience, I have some questions already here. And for those of you that have more, I will be reading them out to you for the next 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll be wrapping up. So the first question is, Nar, can you use Dect as a wooden conventional fireplace surround?
I've actually used it around a conventional wooden fireplace, so both indoor and outdoor. I've actually wrapped it into the fireplace a little bit. I'm not sure that that's recommended or not, but I'm always pushing the limits. I'm actually trying to test the product on my projects to see where it might fail, and it hasn't yet. So I've wrapped it into a fireplace it's actually called the Dect Sail Lounge. So if you look on my website, you'll find it there, and that's an exterior fireplace and they burn that very hot. I've seen them have roaring fires there. So yes, it's possible.
Thank you. And Rose, I know you asked this question, and we will have this information available with everyone's websites. So thank you for that. Anne Marie, you asked if how soon will samples of the collection be available, and they're available now. So if you have not heard from your Cosentino rep in your area, please give them a shout, or if you do not hear from them, please contact me directly at Patty, P-A-T-T-Y-D, at Cosentino.com, and we will make sure we get those samples to you. But you can also get some online. All of our kits are going out right now, as I said. So here's another question. And this one goes for any of you, so whoever wants to go for it. It says, what do you take into consideration when selecting a material? Oh, Marc, you're on mute.
Not anymore.
There. Go ahead.
That could go to any of us, of course. But I think each one of us, as we have said, really we take function into consideration very, very powerfully, because ultimately these are active spaces that we're designing with these hard surfaces, whether it's part of a fireplace or part of an indoor kitchen or an outdoor kitchen, or even part of a facade of a building, which, as we know, takes a beating. So we take the material qualities, ability to survive first and foremost, and then beauty falls into consideration. We're not selecting individual items because we like them. We're creating three-dimensional compositions in which we all live, in which we all work. And those three-dimensional compositions affect how we feel, how we relate to one another, how we communicate with one another. And so ultimately, the elements of scale, texture, and contrast, when balanced properly, can make us feel better, which makes us communicate better and interact in a more effective way. So first and foremost, in terms of selection, we have to take into consideration function and durability. Second, how does that material affect our overall composition, which involves many, many components?
Thank you, Marc. Another question is if these slabs are, these colors are available in slabs in the U.S. today, and I will answer that, and the answer is absolutely yes. All of our Cosentino centers have the slabs available. So again, you can do a virtual visit, or you can make an appointment. We are open. All of our centers across the country are open. and you can go and make an appointment and go see the new products. And we will be launching the Decton launch on a local level with all of our centers starting June 22nd. The next question is for Carrie. If you were to use the Decton Baltic, would you make the room monochromatic, or is that a trend that you think will fade?
I always love monochromatic, but I also love a little contrast. And so while I may not go totally white with it, I think Baltic pairs beautifully with any metal that you choose. It has that versatility. Like I said, a pair of denim jeans, your favorite pair of jeans, it really goes with anything. So whether we put that crisp white shirt with it, or we even pair black or leather tones, like a rough hewn leather would be beautiful with this. I think you can't go wrong. So again, thinking of it as a neutral, I think you have a lot of versatility there.
Thank you. Marc, this one's for you. And the question is, what led you to select a direct adhere facade for your upcoming residential project?
So one of the challenges that we had with this particular application was that not all of these facade planes are at 90 degrees to the ground. They kind of tilt in and out of one another to create a very geometric composition that, since we're using all white, the form and the overall proportion of spaces on this facade is all happening through shadow. So as we're changing planes, we can't use the rain screen application because water flow behind that is a very, very important piece of the puzzle when you're using rain screen. And there are lots of reasons to do that in perfectly vertical applications. Since we did not have a perfectly vertical application, we thought of this more like one would think of tile shedding water. So since Decton starts out in very large format slabs, we get to cut it up in whatever way we want to cut it up and put our seams wherever we want to put our seams, and create a waterproof substrate behind the Decton so that we have this really, really wonderful impervious layer that keeps water from penetrating behind the skin of the structure, even though all of the planes aren't perfectly vertical, like you see in the photograph that is up now in that exterior application. So it was really more a component of watershed and waterproofing that led us to that solution.
Thank you. And this one's for you, Nar. Where do you see yourself using Laurent? With the texture being matte and the color being so deep, use this color for exterior?
I believe that I would use it everywhere. I've already used it in a kitchen, and I have some photos of that. It's very dramatic, but it's subtle. It's grounding, like I said before. So I would love to do a larger piece. I would love to see something that has maybe 10 slabs, maybe 20 slabs, something large, because I think it would be just this incredible, beautiful, very dramatic, but not overly dramatic system. This is kind of a dark picture here, but this is one example where I created a very dark and moody kitchen. And what it has is a backsplash, an island with the waterfall, and it's all mitered. But on the back of the island, it's actually inset 3 inches. So there's lighting. And so I want the island to light itself up. So that's what this is going to do. I just feel like this would also make for a pretty amazing like floor, maybe not the whole house, but a moody room, you know, a room where maybe a music room or something like that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Marc, another question about the facade is, what made you use direct adhere instead of rain screen?
So that's very similar to the question that we just talked about. It's all about waterproofing and water shed off the surface. Since the facade is not directly perpendicular to the ground and does have lots of angles and different kind of subtle canting planes to the facade to create shadow and composition and scale. We needed something that was going to push the water off the building, even though the building was not perfectly vertical with the ground. And the direct adhere allowed us to do that.
Okay. And then Nar, how thin can you use Decton with some of your for horizontal worktops? How thin can you go?
As thin as you want. I think we've done 1.2, so you have to have a good substrate, as with any material. And so I've used it on floors and on countertops.
And you have we also have the 8mm if needed, and then for vertical and horizontal, some of the 4mm as well. Is Decton, so I think this one's for you, Marc. Is Decton marketed as a hygienic finish solution compared to other materials?
So Decton is inherently hygienic in that it isn't permeable. One of the things that makes surfaces non-hygienic is the fact that matter can penetrate the surface. When you're using a natural stone, for example, it's what we call permeable. While it might be a very, very, very dense sponge, it's still a sponge, and it wants to absorb liquids and the things that are suspended in those liquids. Things that can be suspended in liquids do include bacteria and virus. So the fact that Decton is virtually impermeable to those liquids does leave everything on the surface. Now, is it hygienic in a way that it's going to kill anything on its surface? No. And there are surfaces that do claim to have inherent qualities that will inhibit the growth of things like viruses and bacteria. But the real benefit of Decton is its density, and it can be cleaned very, very effectively.
Great. Thank you, Marc. Wow, believe it or not, it is almost the hour, and it seems like just a few minutes because I could talk to you guys forever. But we are going to start to wrap up. So I'm going to, before we do wrap up, I'd like to just allow you guys, we have like 2 minutes left, if you want to just close with some remarks, and everyone will see your websites when we finish so that they can contact you and see your projects. But Carrie, would you like to lead us off with any closing remarks?
Sure. I was just going to say, I think there are so many opportunities to use this product and really close out the year with some innovation, creation, and let your mind run wild as far as what can happen, because the colors are there, the variety of thickness, the application is all in place. And so let your mind run wild. We've been indoors a bit. Let's get outdoors and get really creative with this product.
Thank you, Carrie. What about you, Nar?
Well, I first want to say thank you for having me here. I feel very honored. And one of the things that I'm happy to do, anyone that wants to contact me directly, if they have any questions about how the product behaves, where I've used it, maybe some of its limitations, which there are very few. I'm going to piggyback on Marc with COVID right now. I think decontamination centers are going to be the next very important thing in people's homes. So creating a space where people can bring, whether it's groceries or anything from the outside environment, and leave them in a place that effectively gets cleaned up well. So on that note, it's a beautiful product line, because there's many products, and I'm an avid user of every single one. I always look for the next example of what I can do with it. So join me.
Absolutely. And I echo that. Make sure you reach out if you do have questions on that. Okay, birthday boy, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, first, of course, I want to just say what a pleasure it is to share a bit of an afternoon with you, Patty, and Carrie. I don't see either of you enough, and a great new friend, Nar. I can't wait to get to know you a little bit better. The one thing that we really didn't touch on, we did skim the surface, going back to the points of direct adherence and the thin capabilities of this material, the thin delivery capabilities. Talking about cabinet fronts, you can direct adhere the material to a cabinet front in the 4mm sheets. And that provides a super durable cabinet front as well that is easily cleanable. So I wanted to make that point real quick about kitchens.
Thank you. Thank you for that, because it's true. It's great for cabinets, and some of you got to see some of that at KBIS. And I know that some cabinet manufacturers like Brown Jordan and Carrie, who you've worked with, obviously has done such a great job in working with, and Daniel designed some great kitchens with them with the 4mm that we can't wait to see. So with that, it's time to say goodbye. And I just want to close by also thanking you all. You are my dear friends. You're dear friends of the brand, of our company, and being a family-owned business. All I can say is the only way we are here surviving is thanks to friends like you that have been with us from the beginning, that continue to be with us and believing in us. And for all of you that are watching, please stay healthy. And we can't wait to give you a hug and see you one of these days really, really soon. And with that, happy birthday, Marc.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your beautiful Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thanks.